Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we are going to be creating a fun little Christmas card. We're using the wooden crate, the winter birds, the vintage labels, the winter greenery, and then this one right here is the mini, Lovely Layers mini holiday florals. They came out with one for fall as well, but basically it's just like a nice array of a lot of the other Lovely Layers that they already have out, just in a smaller format. So these are really cute. So we're going to do kind of like a little centerpiece was the idea. And I think it came out really darling. So I like to cut all my pieces out of white. I am also going to cut this. I don't know if you saw the video I did on my own channel a little while ago where I did windows. This was one of the pieces that was left over and that was scored incorrectly because an engineer I am not. And so I'm just using it so that I don't waste that paper. So here, we're going to go right into the coloring. Like I said, this is a mix of the winter greenery as well as those mini holiday florals, just so that I could pick different things to fill my little wooden crate with. And I think it worked out really well. I love how they kind of play nicely together. So this branch, I believe, is from the winter greenery. It has its own set of berries. And one of the reasons why some of the pieces play so nicely together is because you can always cut them down. So like this one is one branch with a lot of berries, but I'm going to be able to trim that down to just fill in my box accordingly. This is the little pine cone. It's 2 layers. That's the other thing with these is, if you love the Lovely Layers, but sometimes you feel like maybe it's a little bit too much for you. Like if you don't like the finicky pieces, I know I struggle with that personally sometimes, even though I have learned over the years that they've been coming out with them that like it is worth it. It's worth it to do all of the little pieces because they look so good. But these ones don't have nearly as many layers because they are smaller, so they just don't have as many. So here I did the dark brown and the mid-tone on the backer piece, and then I did the mid-tone and the light brown on the front piece. And when I put them together, you'll be able to see it right away. They look like they don't go. They look like they are 2 separate pieces. So I'm going to go back in and I'm just going to put a little bit of darkness, a little bit of contrast into that top layer, and follow along the embossed lines and then blend out that darker color with the mid-tone and then finally the lighter color again. And just adding that little bit of darkness helps them to reconnect to each other. And so they look like a pine cone instead of looking like 2 separate pieces, one laid on top of the other. So, and I am building as I go. I don't always do that, but this time around, it was definitely worth it for me. And like I did color, like I think the first two or three or whatever. And then I was like, you need to be gluing these as you go, girl. And so here what you see me doing is just making sure that I'm getting the side edges with that like mid-tone or whatever you see the most of in your die cut. I would recommend, just making sure you're going along the line. Here, same thing that I do with all my Lovely Layers. I lay one on top of the other and then I kind of put in where the shading needs to go with my lightest color. And then from there I can start building up my darker shadows. Because this is a crate, I did, stick with those same browns. You guys know, if you watch me, that when it comes to like where we've got a lot going on, and we do have a lot of working parts in this little crate, I like to repeat my colors so that it doesn't get too busy, too crazy. But everything kind of stays nice and cohesive. And what we're really looking at for this particular video is creating visual triangles. And sometimes you hear us designers talk about that, like that visual triangle. What does that mean? The visual triangle is what will lead your eye around the artwork. So in our case, our artwork is cards, but it could be, you know, a painting or a sculpture, or, you know, like abstract art. See, abstract art, maybe not abstract art. Maybe not. Here I put them together and tested them, and I could see that I didn't have as much contrast as I wanted, so I went back in with my darker marker and just kind of added that to the underneath of each of the slats, and then along the corner again, and now I'm trying to put it together backwards. Oh, there we go. Flip that around, Kelly. And then I was much happier with that. But so we want to lead the eye around. And when you are putting things together, it is best to work in odd numbers, because if you work in even numbers, your brain automatically tries to pair things off. It's trying to kind of start doing the work for you. And that isn't always the most pleasant in art when you're viewing it in art. Here I will say that these two, like the poinsettia centers, have the base piece and then a 2-piece and then a 1-piece. The 1-piece I did kind of struggle to get colored. So I did end up having to get out my reverse tweezers to just kind of hold them in place. Sometimes I can just use my fingernail. But in this particular case, I think I was really struggling with that. So then I got the tweezers, but then the tweezers weren't necessarily helping. So then I went back to the fingernail. So do whatever works for you. Was I coloring them with probably too many colors? Yeah, absolutely. Something to note here, I just wanted to show you, when you're working on a non-porous surface with your alcohol inks, you can sometimes wipe it up with just like a wet rag. If it doesn't come up with a wet rag, you can use a little bit of alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, on your rag to kind of wipe that up. You don't want to leave those colors down on your non-porous surface, because when you come in with the next set of markers to do the coloring, your lighter colors will snag that ink right up off of your glass mat and then redeposit it onto your die cut, which we don't want. So when you're coloring things that are like colors, it's fine. When you're coloring things that are not like colors, that we wouldn't want to pick up that ink and add it, make sure you're cleaning your work surface in between. So we saw the pine sprigs. In order to make them just a little bit darker, I did bring in a B99 and then go over that with the G29, just so I could have a little bit of a darker green. For these ones, I did go with a lighter green, and these do have leaves that you can lay over top, and then they also have berries. So I've cut 2 of these, and just bringing in, you know, that little bit of a lighter green will help contribute to the interest of our little arrangement. But you can see as I'm going through, I'm trying to pay attention to the way that they attach to the stem, so that way I can be sure about where I'm putting my shading. I try to make sure it's coming from where it connects to the stem, because that is that would be darker in real life where those two pieces connect. And then, moved all the way out to my lightest color and just filled those in. And I colored the base that same way. And then I also went into the base with just the mid-tone brown. I didn't really do any shading. I just filled in the actual stem portion. And then I'll be able to add the berries onto it, and those will be done. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Kelly, you just said don't work in, pairs, and you only have 2 of these. You're correct. But I also am using this yellow-green combination on some of the smaller flowers. So I don't have just 2 of them. I will repeat this color again. So your things don't need to be the same to read the same. I hope that makes sense. Like, so when we're putting the card together, like I do have, I have a red cardinal. These are the berries, by the way. I'm doing them white. And so I'm adding just shading to basically one side of the berries with my cool grays. But you could use any grays that you wanted or off-whites, whatever makes you happy. Not only in the visual triangle are we looking at the color, which is helpful. So like we have a red cardinal, red berries, but we're also looking at the size for the balance. So we're looking at the size of the elements that we're putting together to create a balanced work. Here are these smaller flowers I was telling you about. And once again, the process is the same. I lay the light, like the top layer over the base layer, and then I mark it typically with my lightest color. Here, I was obviously getting lazy. And marking it with the darkest color. But once again, because I do want them to be white, we're only putting in the shadows. So you don't want to be super heavy-handed with your grays. You want to be nice and light-handed with them. So on the home front, what has been going on? We went to his band concert today, which I do want to share with you, but I feel like we never talked about his social. Did we talk about his social? I don't think we did. So I don't know what is where you guys are from. But here, like I didn't have my first like school dance until I was in middle school. That was like my first school dance, and it was like a winter, what do they even call it? It wasn't a winter formal type dance. Like that was the first real dance that we ever went to. I chose to go with those same yellows that I used for the poinsettia for the inside of these. Again, just repeating those colors to create balance and not chaos within the color scheme that you see. And then I will build these together. Something to note, if you are unfamiliar with the Lovely Layers, the layering guides are always available on Honeybee's website. If you order them, you typically will receive a very nice card that has all of the like the steps laid out. But let's say you order from another wholesaler, you may not get the card, but they're always available on their website. And even though I have some of the cards, I typically pull up the PDF on my computer and I just let it sit there while I'm putting them together. This is that other light green that we're going to have repeating. So anyway, that was like the first school dance experience that I had was like in middle school. So he also, they're calling them socials now, but I was like really surprised that he wanted to go. And I was like, yes, like I'm here for it. You want to go to the social? Absolutely. And the theme of their social was disco. And so I was like, hey, I know it's like the day before Caitlin's birthday party, but I'm going to volunteer so I can, go and see him at his little social and it'll be so cute. And, so I was like, hey, like, do you know what you want to wear? Dress up, and he was like, no, I'm not dressing up. And I was like, what? And he was like, you can, but you don't have to. Like, they're just, it's not a big deal, Mom. So then, of course, that led me to like the little Facebook page of the parents. And sure enough, he was right. Like, they all just wore regular clothes. There was no dressing up. Like, some of the girls had on clothes. I learned very, very quickly in volunteering there that most of the parents of these children do not know what disco means, or these children, well, the children for sure don't know what disco means. So I ran into like one guy who was a parent volunteer, and he had on his, little bell bottoms, looked like, something out of a Bee Gees concert. And I was like, yeah, you probably know what the disco is. And he was like, yeah, but I lived it once and that was enough for me. I was like, fair. So here, just something to note with these little branches, like they do show you where you can put the berries, but ultimately at the end of the day, like you put the berries wherever you want. So I did one with like all separate berries, and then this one I grouped some of the berries. Same thing with the red ones when we get to that. Like some of them are grouped, some of them are not. There's not a right or a wrong way to do it. Like you put the berries wherever the berries make you happy. These poinsettias are going to be the counter part to my bird. So my bird is my largest element. In order to balance my bird and create my visual triangle, I'm going to have two of these poinsettias. They are not exactly the same color. One is a darker red with black. One is a lighter pinkish red with the gold. Obviously, the bird has the gold too because he has the beak. But even though they're not exactly the same, they read similar. So they're going to create that balance. Same thing with the pine cones and the box. They're going to create, even though they're different elements, because they're in that same color family, they're going to create a visual triangle that will help us to balance our floral bouquet. So my job when we went, like we had to get there early and the kids had to wait outside. So I went down and they were like, we're looking for volunteers for this, for that, whatever. And so I ended up on the pizza and cookie table. And so like the kids would come over with their little wristbands. They obviously had already, purchased their ticket beforehand, so they knew how much pizza and cookie to get. And this is first things first that is different from any of the school dances that I went to. They did not feed us until prom. Prom was the first dance where you had like a meal. Every other dance, homecoming, winter formals, things like that, like it was a traditional thing to like go out to eat or, have people over to eat before you went to the dance. So that's already right out the gate. That's different for me. But I'm like, hey, that's cool. Gives them something to fill in the gaps. So they have like everything sectioned off. We've got our little gloves on. We're doing pizzas and cookies. And then they have these little wristbands, and the wristbands have to get marked so that everybody knows if you've gotten a piece of pizza and if you've gotten a cookie. And let's go back to the card real quick. So here what you see me doing is I'm going in with a colorless blender. So if I felt like I got a little heavy-handed with the shading of the pink, because these are more of like your candy stripe kind of style poinsettias, if I got a little heavy-handed, getting the colorless blender and just kind of hitting the edges with that is a really, really great way to kind of push back that color more toward the middle and blend that gray into the reds. So then when you put them together, like you see me doing here now, the edges still look like they're white, which is what we want. So don't stress if you were a little heavy-handed with your gray or with your red. You can come back, push it back with that colorless blender and still get a really pretty result. And then from here, we're layering the 3, the 2, the 1 onto the center. And then this little poinsettia is done. Darling. Love it. For the bird, we are going a little bit darker like we talked about before, but the process has not changed. We're still going to lay, one over the other, mark the shadows, go ahead and move the top layer so that we can color the bottom layer and make sure that everything is as it's supposed to be as far as where the shading is laying. The only one with this one, because they do such an awesome job with the lovely layers and getting all the details, on the top piece of the bird, there is some embossed detail where the head is, and there's also some embossed detail on the belly. And so we don't want to forget that when we're adding our shading. And I typically tend to do just very little small C shapes to kind of mimic that plumage that the bird would have. And then I did the feet, the face black, and I did the beak, that same gold color that is already repeating in our bouquet. So, they didn't feed us. I don't know if you guys did that or not. Like my freshman year of homecoming, I just went with a bunch of girlfriends. There was a huge group of us, and we went to like Bob Evans beforehand. I also went one year with a date who took me to McDonald's beforehand. Like, it was different, but hey, it was all right. Like, everything doesn't always have to be like over the top. Now, dances are so different, and I think it's adorable. Like, I think it's super cute when you have the like promposals, or I think those things are really, really cute. But it does seem like the younger generations do have a propensity to kind of like make those things like a really big deal. The asking of the things, which, I mean, I don't necessarily know if that's the right or the wrong way. I think it makes me a little sad for the people who just get asked in a more traditional way, maybe of them feeling like disappointed, when really there is nothing wrong with just asking somebody in a more traditional way. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents about that. So the other thing I learned is there weren't really like dates. There's no dates for these socials. It's just all of the kids kind of going and hanging out. And they had like games in the hallway. Again, that's different. Like when I was younger, when you went to a dance, like you danced. That's what you did. You danced or you held the wall up. Like that was pretty much it. I guess they probably had beverages. Like they did probably have beverages at my school dances, but I don't remember there ever being food. And I don't know, they just seem maybe more formal, and I'm sure he will get more formal dances as we get up in grades. But so my dear sweet child basically hung out with his buddies all night. Went into the gym to dance for just a little bit. I did take a little break from, like all of us moms did. One would cover for the other one so that they could go in the gym and just kind of see the games being played. It was very cute. I'm glad that I volunteered because I got to, see him in his little element for a while. And it was a very eye-opening experience because it was very different than what mine was. Like my first dance, like I got my hair done. I had like this silvery blue dress because it was a winter dance that was more formal. I had a date. His name was Jason. Um, like but my middle school was also not sixth, seventh, and eighth. My middle school was just seventh and eighth. So maybe that's the difference. I don't know. Maybe as we get older and they do the socials, maybe the socials are always meant to be casual. Like, are socials like Sadie Hawkins dances? Like, I know in Sadie Hawkins dance, like the girls ask the boys, but like I feel like those are maybe more casual. I don't know. Tell me what you know. So here I did want to point out like the bird does have an eye and I did cut it out, but I cut it out in black instead of white, and you guys know how I feel about the finicky bits. So I did not go back and cut the eyeball out of white. I filled it in with a white gel pen. I congratulated myself and I moved on. So now this is I believe the last thing that we need to color, which is our little berries. So I did do like just a little dab of dark where the berry kind of like insets, and then moved on to the next color, so on and so forth until I was out to the lightest color. And then I think in this one, I don't think I built it right away because I wanted to be able to put them in how I wanted them. So I did decide, originally the idea behind this was I was going to do like a little sky behind it and have the vintage label look like a window and have my little crate like sitting on a shelf, because you guys know that I love a scene card, and anytime that I can work that into a scene, like I'm gonna do it. But it actually didn't look right, so I didn't mind the background that I created with it. The blue, the diagonal blue, works really well with the other images, but it is not a scene card. It's just more of a general focal point, which is also fine. So this is a combination of Salty Ocean and Salvage Patina. And this is me trying to, okay, let's see. So now here's my biggest element that I've started with, which is my crate and then my bird. The next one I'm doing are the ones that will offset my bird. So here we have that visual triangle, flower, flower, bird. Now we're bringing in those other smaller white flowers. Here is the pine, which we want to be, kind of more of a filler. And I'm going to start tucking these in just to try to help like build it up. And there's this is where a lot of the play happens. So, we have those two flowers, and then the bird. Then here, do I want the pine to go up, to go down? Don't be afraid to cut them so that you can use, them a little bit differently so that you can create more of a balance for what you have. The pine cones, because they are the same color, are going to create that visual triangle with our crate. So we definitely want them to be up a little bit higher than the crate is. Then here is those lovely yellow greens with the white berries. And so we're looking at where we can tuck those into, kind of using our tweezers to pull things up and around to move them about, because we don't necessarily need to see all of something in order for it to work. So because we have these white flowers and we have the white berries, they're also, the yellow-green leaves for the flowers, and then the yellow-green leaves for the berry branches. Like here, I didn't need the whole berry branch. I just needed a piece of it. So now I have some white berries bottom right, I have some white berries bottom left, and I have some white berries kind of in the middle. Then we have that light green white flower to the left and the right. So that gives us 5 pieces. So poinsettia, poinsettia, bird, 1 triangle. Pine cone, crate, 2 triangles. So we're just trying to create this balance, and that's what a lot of these smaller pieces are for. And again, I told you I specifically used this larger branch so that I could kind of rearrange, like trim it down and rearrange it to make sure I was going to be able to tuck them in if I needed a pop of color. So now I have if I left it just like this, where I was putting the berries in, then I would also have a visual triangle with the red bird, red berry, red berry. But I want more berries than that. Like I want the box to look a little bit fuller. So then we're going to try to create 5. And if we can't do 3, if 3 is not enough, we're going to skip over 4 and we're going to go 5. So now we have a berry bottom left, top left, bottom right, middle right, bottom right. So we have that 5 again, that odd number. And sometimes, unless you are a person who chooses to put adhesive on the back of them at the time that you're cutting them, which if you have that much forethought, you are better than me. And I am jealous of you because I never think of it. Almost never. So here I'm just, trying to figure it out and make sure everything looks really balanced for those visual triangles. And then once I have everything where I want it, I would highly recommend taping down your backer and doing the hinge method with the press and seal. I did not have any press and seal up in my craft room. It was downstairs in my kitchen, and I am lazy. So I did not do the press and seal. Instead, I chose to select the larger elements, put liquid glue on the back of them, and then press them down into the smaller pieces in the hopes that I would be able to pick up the vast majority of them. When that wasn't exactly working out as well as I had hoped, I just flipped it over. So, because this piece isn't even adhered, this vintage label that I've trimmed out. So first things first, I got to get that glued down. The other one between the bird and the poinsettia is holding relatively well. So I know that there's that one branch that kind of like fell off or what have you. But that's okay. Like there's always going to be, maybe 1 or 2 pieces. So for my crate, I do want you are going to see a very small portion of the back of it, but I want to sandwich whatever I can in between the 2 levels of the crate, because that's going to help hold them in place when I go to flip this back over. Now, my girl Dawn likes to do a lot of different layers. She'll do a lot of different layers of foam tape and stuff. And if that's your thing, like I am here for it. I think it's really beautiful. But for me, when I have this many die cuts on top of each other, I don't feel the need to add foam. I feel like there's so much raised dimension from the die cuts themselves that is sufficient for me. So now once I have everything kind of holding on to each other, then I can turn it around and glue it as one full piece. And I will go back and adhere like any loose pieces. But I, for the most part, can go ahead and get this down, and then I'll just go through and lift up some areas to see where I need some extra adhesive. And I do that until it's secure. I cannot remember the name of this set, the sentiment set. I'll link everything below like I normally do. But the sentiment that I chose is Enjoy the Wonder of Christmas. And so I am heat embossing this in white on black. I decided to do the black because I have some black with the cardinal face and the feet. So I decided to just pop the black in there to balance that. But you certainly could do like a, you know, some color, a dark green or a red or, you know, whatever makes you happy. And I'm going to put that in the kind of bottom-ish right. But for some reason, like, I just didn't like it as well, you know, further over to the left. I'm not sure it's because that bottom right-hand portion does feel a little bit like something is missing. It doesn't really have anything going on. So then I added some glitters, because you know I love the glitters, to the things. I also added some highlights to the centers, to the berries. And then I thought I was going to be done. I zoomed in and everything to just like let it ride out, and I realized that I forgot to add any rhinestones. So I did go back in and add some dark red rhinestones to accent my sentiment, and then I was done with it. I was a little particular with my rhinestones. But that's it. That's the whole card. So I hope this teaches you a little bit about balance, a little about finding those visual triangles. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.